Good evening. Good evening, everybody. We're going to play a little music, get some people onto our live stream. Those of you driving around Fargo-Moorhead, the Mexican Crossing line is going to be coming up in about 2 minutes. I want you to join us with the show. It's going to be a really good show.
We have a very special guest tonight.
A special guest.
A First Sergeant, active reservist, Andrew Mercado, Minneapolis native, is going to be interviewing with us tonight about the riots in Minneapolis and the aftermath. Just a moment. Also want to mention all the photographs that you see flashing behind me and behind Duke, all of the audio and the video clips you're going to see tonight, as well as the interview, are courtesy of Andrew Mercado. Call your friends and neighbors, tell them a Mexican Crossing Lines is about to start, and help us share this information. Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight, I'm going to be talking about the aftermath of the riots in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and now those that have spread like wildfire through the rest of the country. Moments before I came on this broadcast, I sat shocked, mouth agape, as I watched the violence. My heart is breaking, I swear to you, right at this very moment, as I watched people in New York outside the Brooklyn Center beating and being beaten by police. There is no way to social distance. There is no way to ensure that you're not breathing and spreading a deadly virus in any of these situations, in the protests that are taking place all across America, including Washington, D.C., Texas, Georgia, Kentucky, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, and New York. And it is terrifying to me to think that even though we received the breaking news that Derek Chauvin has now been charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter in the death of George Floyd, that may not be enough to stop the unrest and the riots across this country. Not to mention the fact that the autopsy report today, the initial findings of the medical examiner, decided or determined that the death that caused George Floyd to stop breathing was not brought about by the officer, but instead, according to this report, he suffered from coronary artery disease and hypertensive heart disease. the combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and other possible potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. And I don't think that is going to make anyone feel that there was justice done. Of course, this is just the initial findings. The full medical examiner report is to come. But from everything that I have seen, we are headed in a really dangerous and wrong direction in this country. So we're going to be talking today with this special guest, Andrew Mercado, who is boots on the ground reporting and has been since Wednesday evening about what is taking place in his city. But first, I want us to get into what happened in this morning's press conferences, where the mayor and the mayor of Minneapolis both spoke, as well as the AG, Mr. Ellison, about last night's riots, and hear from them.
Well, we should do a little bit of housekeeping for people so they can actually get a hold of us. We are doing some stuff that, we were on a stay-home vacation, and this stuff started in Minneapolis, and we ended up coming back to work, which was basically walking into our studio, which is in our house. But we gave up our vacation to start reporting on this, and the live streams from Andrew Mercado have been things that, we are looking at, and it's like, I can't believe what's happening in our city of Minneapolis, places we've spent all this time. Every time we go there, the stores we go to that are destroyed and aren't there anymore, and what's happening daily in Minneapolis, and being able to talk with him today. But we've asked people to help us crowdsource some of the information, and I want to make sure people know where to send it. You can always call our message line, leave a message up to 3 minutes. That's 701-566-0917. Again, that's 701-566-0917. You can also send emails, Cindy at kpppfm.com, or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. You can tweet us at media_PPP. You can also go to Facebook at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead, the People's Press Project of Mexi-Can. Also go to our website, kpppfm.com, and have a look around from our programs. We've been broadcasting for a number of years. We were doing podcasts before then, so we have all that material on that website. Some of the stuff we're talking about tonight actually pertains to shows that are on there from the Standing Rock. We were at Standing Rock 5 or 6 times during the whole Standing Rock fiasco, did reporting on the ground there, and did reporting afterwards through years with the Kathleen Bennett case. All that information is on kpppfm.com. You can also go to kpppfm.com/donate. Make a donation to our nonprofit. We are a nonprofit, non-commercial radio station. We're in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Your donations are tax deductible, and they help us produce the programming that you are seeing tonight and you've seen in the past. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate all of you. Keep sending us information. What I find is very interesting is that we work with everybody. People send us stuff. We end up using it, sometimes, a month later, sometimes right away. But your material, the information you send us, is wonderful. We want you to keep that up. Send it to all the places you can. Facebook is a great way to send things because it seems to be unlimited. And attachments can be a little bit bigger than Gmail and all those things. So please keep sending us information and working with us. And welcome to the show tonight. Thank you to all the people who have been following us for years and the new people who have just found us. Oh, I forgot to mention YouTube. Duke 1517. We're simulcasting on YouTube right now and Facebook at the same time.
That's correct. And I just want to share with you what the mayor said, a little bit of what the mayor said this morning, and then get your reactions. This is the mayor speaking about what transpired and what his plan is. Take a listen. There's a pregnant pause.
Mayor, what's the plan here? What are we doing?
With regard to?
Clearing the streets. A lot of businesses have been burned down. A lot of livelihoods have been hurt. We've seen very little police out there just in general at the 3rd and throughout. And I'm just wondering, what is the plan and who's in charge right now in this city?
There is a lot of pain and anger right now in our city. I understand that. Our entire city recognizes that. What we have seen over the past several hours and the past couple of nights in terms of looting is unacceptable.
And, he goes on to say that, we have to, these are businesses that the people of the city need. They're essential. We need them. We need to protect them. We will not tolerate this. But my response to that is they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, the structures are there. They're gutted out. There's nothing inside of them, or what's left inside has been damaged beyond repair. But the majority of these buildings, which were set on fire, and I want to tell you that last night, 170 plus buildings were burned in St. Paul alone, destroyed in St. Paul alone. That's not counting the ones in Minneapolis. And there were also protests and lootings and fires in the cities around the Twin Cities, in the suburbs of the Twin Cities. So if you take all of that and you think about how there were no police, I shouldn't say there were no police. Yesterday, there was some police. Last night, there literally was no police presence to be seen on any of the videos that I saw. And how long did we watch? 6 hours?
Yeah.
6 hours.
Till late in the morning.
We stayed up and we're taking notes because we did some video edits of the Andrew Mercado video. There was no police presence. We saw fire trucks come in, and they were escorted at one point by the National Guard. So if you were hearing reports of that, that the National Guard, didn't do anything, they were doing something out there last night. They were not given a directive to protect the people and the businesses. And without a mission and without an order, they can't make up their own minds and run around and do whatever they want. And so at the press conference for the mayor, the sergeant or whatever that, commands the National Guard, he said as much. We weren't given a mission to protect the people and the businesses of the city, of the Twin Cities until today, until this morning. But what about last night? We already let schools,
Libraries,
banks, pharmacies, clinics burn to the ground. Historic buildings that cannot be replaced. They're already gone. It's like the mayor is talking in a fantasy world where these things are still there and we will not allow them to be damaged and we will not allow It's too late. What is he talking about when he says that?
Exactly.
We're not going to... Can you tell me why he would talk in this way where he's saying, we're not going to allow this to happen and the people of Minneapolis are going to protect their buildings because we need these buildings? You saw those buildings.
Yeah, well, he's like in a fantasy world that he doesn't know what actually has happened. It's like, was he not up last night watching this stuff? Was he not up the night before and the night before that? We've been up 3 nights in a row watching what's going on here. And it's like both him and the mayor act like they've just had it reported to them that there was some people causing some damage, maybe a few broken windows. No, they were torching buildings. They were doing stuff. I mean, some of the stuff I'll show you tonight, they had a cart of bricks. They walked out into the middle of the street with them. People just grabbed a brick and started breaking windows. This was just mayhem all over the place on Lake Street and St. Paul. And so they're acting like they didn't even know.
Carjackings were happening, including 3 U.S. Postal Service vans that were stolen. They were being driven in donuts at high speeds in the middle of the highway. You'll see some of those images pop behind me. In fact, the people standing up right there in the crowd with the American flag on are standing on top of a U.S. Postal Service stolen vehicle, which they later flipped over. All of the people flipped it on its head and then lit it on fire. And then they did donuts with the other vehicles. You know, literally could hear people screaming because there were people walking in the roads. They were cheering, but they're also screaming because they almost got run over because the people that were joyriding were not abiding by any kind of rules of the road of any sort. Behind me, you see pictures of a tent full of carts and medical supplies. There's the van flipped over. The USPS van flipped over by the people. You can see the people flipping it over. It literally was chaotic. And it begs the question, were these people in an induced coma? Or I don't know. Listen to the governor at this morning's press conference.
Pretty quiet.
Yeah. Somber.
Mm-hmm.
He took off his mask.
Good morning, everyone. This has obviously been the most difficult week in Minnesota in recent history and maybe in our entire history. Our community, especially our Back community, is hurting beyond words. Minneapolis and St. Paul are on fire. The fires still smolder in our streets. The ashes are symbolic of decades and generations of pain, of anguish, unheard. Much like we failed to hear George Floyd as he pleaded for his life as the world watched, by people sworn to protect him, his community, our state. Philando Castillo, silenced, unheard. So many other friends, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, senselessly died in our street. Their voices went unheard, and now generations of pain is manifesting itself in front of the world. And the world is watching. One of the first people I called after seeing the video was Valerie Castillo, Philando's mother. We've become friends since the killing of Philando. And for those watching today who aren't familiar, Philando died in front of his loved one and his child, and left them behind and left behind a grieving mother who has become an advocate for justice, an advocate for reform, but more importantly, an advocate for kindness and decency. And when I talked to Valerie, she said first and foremost, seek justice, seek fairness, and reach out and show kindness. What the world saw last night was not that. What the world has witnessed since the killing of George Floyd on Monday has been a visceral pain, a community trying to understand who we are and where we go from here. I'm joined today by Attorney General Ellison.
And then Keith Ellison spoke, and he said something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm not going to share the entire press conference, obviously, of any of these individuals, but I wanted to. I mean, the opening of the mayor was stunning. I think it was bizarre to hear him compare the ashes as a symbol of the pain of the people, because you need to watch. Okay, I hate it when politicians or people that are not watching what occurred, literally watching it. And the videos from our guest tonight, Andrew Mercado, it made me feel like I was there. He's a really good cameraman. Not everyone is, because they pan too quickly and their video is all over the place. They don't protect their sound quality, lighting, all of it. Andrew has very, very good footage. And in addition to that, he's narrating. He is an active duty reservist. And so he knows about the weapons, the drones, the gear that people are wearing. He identified that there were people out there wearing Kevlar, wearing, army issue type helmets, and gas masks and all sorts of things. In addition to the cart of bricks that was brought out, the street medics, the tents full of looted resources being handed out, like first aid, water, milk, and other items being handed out to the rioters, along with supplies like food and beverages and candy and things like that. Also, looted items such as alcohol, cigarettes, and other things were being handed out. And he described that there was an overwhelming scent of marijuana almost every day that I watched his live feed. So this was very prominent and prevalent throughout these riots. And the thing that I want to talk about is, does that honor the spirit of what this man's death by these violent police, does that honor his spirit? Does it honor the justice that he would have sought to leave white and black and Latino business owners without businesses, to destroy the legacy of some buildings and businesses in this area that had been there for generations? And how about the job losses for people of color? How about the food desert, the pharmacy desert, the medical services desert, the every kind of business you can imagine under the sun desert that is created now in St. Paul as well as in Minneapolis? And I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that I don't feel personally that it is doing right by this man. Your thoughts, Duke?
No, I'm really bothered by we just watched Point of View with Chris Berg, and he started out his whole show and said, "Where's the leadership in Minnesota?" And we are in a pandemic, and it's like the pandemic news just ended because Minneapolis and St. Paul are smoldering, and the phenomenon has spread across the country, and it's like it's hard for me to understand this phenomenon because, one, I've never been in a pandemic, and two, I've seen protests. I haven't seen riots spread like that. I guess a few times in my life, like with Martin Luther King, and also some other people who have been killed. There have been riots, but this is something different, and the time it's happening, and it's like, it's very, very, very disturbing these past few days with all these things happening, and also just seeing some of this stuff really close and has it happening live in the live stream. It's just been overwhelming.
And I really encourage folks to go to Andrew Mercado's Facebook page, and we'll share that with you, with our followers, so that everyone can really take a look at these. I especially want to request from my, standing rockers out there, and all of the people that have been following me and learning about the hijacking of the message and the movement of the people most affected by these issues. In the case of Standing Rock, that was Indigenous people. In the case of the caravans, that was migrants. And in the case of these riots, it's the people of color that are actually being killed by rogue officers, by this abuse of power that we've seen time and time again throughout the last decades. And it has absolutely nothing to do with hurting those communities, trying to incite people to violence and mayhem, getting them arrested, which they did at Standing Rock, which they've done in other cases that I've covered, and which they're doing in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and all across the country now today. So I want to encourage you guys to look at these videos of Mr. Andrew Mercado in greater detail. I'm going to share some snippets from last night. There's over 20 hours of video. There's no way I could do it justice. You really do have to see it to understand, to get a feel, so that we can have a deeper conversation about what really went on in these riots in Minneapolis. And here's the first clip. This one from a car dealership. These are all brand new cars, and they just went through and did this to the vehicles. Take a look.
It's car dealership.
There's paint
Rockstar
on that
Automotive
car.
off University Avenue.
Look at the cars.
We got lots of instances of vandalism. So I was getting a lot of calls or messages about them vandalizing vehicles down here and destroying vehicles, and it looks like it was the vehicles inside of the auto store were taken out. Some of them were. This is all right off of This is off of Grigg Street and University Avenue.
Every window's broken in the back of every one of those
Multiple
cars.
vehicles inside of here
Well, not every single one, but almost every single one.
have been just damaged.
You see the shattered glass on the ground everywhere.
We're gonna get.
And this goes on to become a problem because Andrew, who's already wearing a knee brace, slips a number of times and almost gets injured. And there are several people that he videotapes taking falls, especially because there was a bunch of, I believe there was stealing bikes from somewhere.
Yeah.
And everybody got a bike. You know, it was like the Oprah show. It's like everybody's got a bike. And they were trying to drive them down the streets and sidewalks, which are littered. But I'm not talking about like after a parade or a festival. I'm talking about twisted metal, burning embers. I'm talking about like the apocalypse. I'm talking about like after a war where there's like shrapnel on the ground and sharp things and water and possibly electrical things burning. And it's like that. You do not want to be walking around, not even in your good shoes. Like you need to have some heavy duty types of shoes to walk around, boots or something. And so he goes over to a garage where they're fixing people's cars, but it has been lit on fire, so the sprinkler systems are going wild, and he captured this. Here are some vehicles.
But the discount tire is at minimum flooded. So people said it was on fire earlier. If you have a vehicle in there, that sucks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
If you have a vehicle
We're gonna
in there,
keep going. There's the police. They got the perimeter set there.
it can now double as a pool.
I hear the newscopters over here in St. Paul.
And in St. Paul, there was more of a police presence than in
This
Minneapolis.
is going to go on all weekend, guys. So eventually they're going to.
Yeah.
He said eventually they're going to run out of things to burn. I don't know. They seemed
either.
to escalate. We saw them taking down light poles, signs, bike racks to use as barriers that they put things in. And then, he said that they used them to burn. Here, I want to show you people protecting their businesses with long guns in St. Paul. This happened in Minneapolis as well. Don't know if those people eventually have been
We're going to
abandoned.
back away a little bit.
Yeah, they had
Backing
guns.
up.
The Dollar Tree and the tobacco store.
So the Dollar Tree owners are armed. So they're.
One of our listeners' comments is that a lot of people came up from Chicago. We also saw people from New York. We also saw people from California. We identified people from out of the country, from Canada. So there's a lot of different groups that are involved in, especially the kinds of positions of organizing that are not necessarily your traditional roles. The security people, the guys with the megaphones telling people to get back or to back away from burning buildings that are about to explode, or telling people how to stay safe from cameras, telling you how to loot safely, if that's even a thing, to spot where the cameras are in the video so you can avoid being recognized, telling people how to protect their identity so they're not seen. They had a culture within the crowds where if you pointed the camera at someone, they might smack a phone out of your hand, beat you up, and take your stuff.
Yep.
And they did that to Andrew. At one point, somebody saw him videotaping. He had a very careful tact to point his phone at the floor or to hold it up really, really high in order to let everyone know. He just wanted to capture the mayhem. He didn't necessarily want to out someone. He wasn't doing this for, to alert the authorities or anything like that, because there is a culture that permeates these crowds where you're supposed to protect the looting activities. You're supposed to protect and hide the activities of people that are throwing bricks or burning buildings, who started the buildings on fire. And there's a lot of questions surrounding that. There was a video that has been circulated a lot by people of a white man wearing what looks like a very heavy duty mask, respirator mask, that broke out the windows of that AutoZone that was first set on fire. And of course, here behind me, you can see that there's a tent full of milk that was set up so people could clean out their eyes. There was water. There was first aid set out for people. So, we could see that there was a lot of coordination. And, there was groups of people that were all masked and wearing dark colors that were going from building to building, setting fires. And in this next video, you're going to see a group of those people running away as the firefighters are coming in heavy. And you don't get to see it at the end of this clip because it cut off right as the last firefighter truck whips around the corner and almost drives through this group of running protesters. But Andrew was so shocked by the incident that he yelled out a curse word, so I had to cut it right before that fire truck rolled through. Take a look.
There's shrapnel in the streets. Like I said, we're gonna stick to the left. We don't want to be around the police. Here's some more damage. It's a whole different war zone now there. Stay safe. I will. I'll be safe, guys. Minneapolis is big. It's like, and there's a few different parts to Minneapolis. And I'm not from there, but the best way I can describe it is that it's split into two. Maybe someone from there could explain it better. But you got North Minneapolis and then the south side. And 94 kind of separates the two, Interstate 94. And the south side of Minneapolis has a lot of residential areas that we can park. So we're just gonna stand still and let the firefighters drive by. So they're standing in front of the T-Mobile. They're moving in. They're moving in heavy here right now. I wonder if they're gonna start getting ready to protect the Allianz Field with the fire chiefs here. They're moving big, so they're running here. So we don't want to be a part of that. No, we don't want to be a part of that. So
he starts backing up, and then of course another fire truck rolls through there, and it looked like, the firefighter's truck didn't have enough time to really slow down, so that could have been a disaster. And in St. Paul, as well as in Minneapolis, Andrew was constantly looking for and asking for media, and they just weren't around.
Yeah.
He did see some people with cameras and some live streamers. This is probably one of the bigger camera crews that he saw, and they didn't really have like the big TV mainstream media cameras. It was like a smaller setup. Take a look. Just like a little tripod.
That are walking along in their cars. This is what you guys want. So no, we're right in front of the 3rd precinct right now. We can get you guys some better images, because once I found out that there is absolutely zero law enforcement or anybody fighting people down here where we're at, it doesn't matter. So this is the site. I'm standing right in front of the 3rd precinct, directly in front of it. Here's what's happening here. There's the Minnehaha Avenue liquor store. As we look further down the street.
I'm gonna go get more milk.
Again, we don't want to make sure. there's, as you guys see, the power lines going out. We're getting around. I'm raising my camera up a little high. I don't want people to feel as if I'm videotaping them. That's not the point.
The only limit, literally, the bandwidth that I...
A lot of people along this part. Let's see if we can. So you guys see it's. We walked past that last night, the liquor store. We got power lines going out further along down the street, even further down. Just drop my Venmo in the comments for people. That's not what I'm out here for, but if you guys donate, it's fine. I'll let my peers send out that. We're gonna walk back. Okay, so I see one news camera here.
They don't have any press badges or anything that indicates that
Yeah.
they're from the press. I mean, they do have a camera set up and everything. And I'm glad to see that at least that one guy standing up there is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
But there was really no media presence. And I want to mention a couple of things, and I'll throw in a few comments here real quick. But the CNN crew that came in was not present at, what time did we go to sleep again? 5 in the morning? 5-ish. Whenever it was that Andrew stopped filming. And the reason he stopped filming was because the police showed up early in the morning. Okay? They finally came in as everything was already winding
destroyed.
down and destroyed by that point.
Mm-hmm.
And they came in and they announced very loudly that this is an unlawful protest. Anyone that is still here will be arrested. Basically giving a warning to everyone, get out now. We are going to be making arrests. And that's when CNN must have showed up after that announcement was made. And I just can't believe that if you were any kind of media source worth your salt, that you would want to be there to capture the action, to capture what is happening, not to wait until it's all over and then show up when everyone is leaving and the cops are about to make arrests. Maybe they wanted to capture that part of it. Maybe there's a reason why they showed up at that time, because they wanted to capture the part where the police finally showed up and they started making arrests. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure what what was going on in their mind as they made this decision. But there weren't any media from the mainstream to capture all of this, which is why, once again, these clips, these videos, this coverage that was gathered by Andrew and so many others is crucially important. I do want to clarify. Thank you, Derek, for Derek Budd comments that no people from Canada. What I meant to say is I saw a lot of Native American live streamers, some of them representing northern tribes that span from northern United States into Canada. And of course, we have our borders closed at this time because of the pandemic. But there were people literally from all across the country that I've seen doing live streams before, like at Standing Rock and other protests, that were also live streaming at these riots. There was also the reminding me of Standing Rock of these street medics. In this clip you're about to see, he hears and sees how a man slips in the melee of all of the twisted metals and broken glass and everything. And when he falls, he hits his head and he busts open the back of his head. He's bleeding. At first, I thought the man was unconscious. He definitely wasn't moving. He must have hit himself really, really hard. And so this Andrew immediately jumps into action. He has his government-issued personal first aid kit. He grabs it. He starts opening up his gauze. And immediately, as he is getting ready to actually treat this man's head wound, there's already a street medic there. Take a look.
Want me to hold it there?
Yeah, will you hold it?
All right. So we're holding it. He's good.
Yeah, he's good. He's
She's
breathing.
got a little backpack with medical supplies.
I got my gauze pads too.
She's got gloves there.
Hold on. It's fine. It's fine.
He's
I
fine.
got it.
Yeah, she's got it.
She had a spray there that she was, I don't know what kind of medicine that was, but she was clearly prepared. And as I mentioned, there was like tents set up in the Target parking lot?
Yep.
Canopies that were replete with carts that had drawers filled with all sorts of different medicines for the people that were out there. They didn't just supply every buddy that was out there with water, medical support. They also gave them tools, if you will, to destroy the buildings. In this next video, you're going to see a man throwing bricks through a building. Now, one of the things I noticed from these videos is that one of the tactics as they were moving from building to building, yesterday they were looting many of the buildings they burned today. That's one thing.
Okay.
Another thing is that they were going to the buildings that had been abandoned by that point, and as they were going to start them on fire, they would break out the windows, and from a distance they would begin to put accelerants into the buildings. There were people that had cardboard that they were bringing in, because a lot of these buildings are brick.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they were taking down the boards, the plywood or whatever that was used to board up many of the businesses to protect them from having their windows shattered and their doors broken into, and using that as fodder for the fire. Take a look at this video in which one of the protesters is using bricks to throw at the building they're setting on fire here.
So I thought for sure he might have been with somebody.
See him in the background there?
Yesterday they said CNN and
Checking
Fox
things
were like
inside?
hiding out here just videotaping.
He's grabbing
But
one.
I didn't see him. They were definitely out here at 5 a.m. yesterday though. That's when WCCO contacted me and Tyler.
I also saw that there were people.
So we're hearing more rounds pop off. It is chilly though. Is it not chilly out here than it was yesterday? Yeah, it's definitely a little chilly. I'm glad I wore a sweatshirt and jeans. What's that? Oh, I thought they said something. We're still working on the first floor of the precinct. They're trying to get the boards down or what. I'm just recharging my legs again.
This guy's relentless there in the background. He has, like, it's like this is his job or something.
Yeah.
I did hear that news media was using
You
my
hear the
live
thumps?
streams though. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't been able to find out.
This is Andrew Mercado. These are all his clips. Credit for the photos behind me, the photos behind Duke. All of this footage comes from Mr. Mercado. And there were shocking moments. There were scary moments. It seemed like he went from one shocking thing to the next, including some really strange moments, like this next clip where he is walking down the light rail station area, and or some kind of transport system station, and he gets to the end, and there's a porta potty, and I want you to pay really, really close attention. I couldn't continue this clip till the end because he's so shocked by what happens at the end of this clip that he starts screaming and swearing and running in the opposite direction. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like he was all like, what? But he really was shocked by this, and he swore, so I had to clip this part out. But take a look for the movement on top of this porta potty as he approaches it.
What's up?
It's on its side, first of all. You see that porta potty at the end there?
Well, we got a building on fire.
It's on its side on the ground. And if you look at
Hey,
the
is
top
the
of
whole
it,
building on
you're
fire?
going to start to see that it's going to move. It's trying to push up on it. You see that? You see it moving? There it goes.
What is that?
And he freaks out. He's like, what? And then he starts screaming as it starts opening up. And he's like, what is that? What is that? And people, plural, come out of the porta potty and set it make it, stand up. And as you can see in this image of the porta potty on its side, there is liquid and other things flowing out of it. You see that? So whatever was inside of the porta potty is now on the floor and presumably all over the two people that came out of the porta potty.
Yeah, exactly.
It was something out of a horror movie. And it was just his reaction to seeing that, and he's like, "What is that? Oh my God, what is that?" And then he started cursing. He's like, "Nope." And he's like, "I'm out." When those people came out, he started going in the other direction. I swear to gosh, I thought he might have run into two zombies. It felt like that was happening. And then, of course, there was this hopeful moment when you see the National Guard rolling in. It was such a relief to see the National Guard rolling in. Unfortunately, their only mission from last night was to guard the firefighters. And here they are coming in to the area.
They got a mount on there. I don't know if that is a crow system or not.
So you see there's a number of Humvees and a contingent of soldiers. It wasn't hundreds. It wasn't, they weren't doing anything other than protecting the firefighters. And as I showed you in that clip where they had people that were damaging the buildings and throwing bricks and stuff, that also was assisted in terms of procuring the bricks. They literally brought a cart out filled with bricks for people to use. Take a look for yourselves.
This is some of the images of what they use. Michael, thank you very much. I just seen that notification come across. Like I said, sometimes they are.
They're
sometimes
sitting on
they don't.
picnic tables,
I'm
picnic
trying to
chairs out
show-
there, watching the fire. I heard someone in the background of this massive fire at some point say that they thought that the fire was, what did they say? It was like, this is the best campfire that I've been invited to. Mm-hmm. As they're watching a law firm burn. That building that you saw in that was a law firm. And there was other, different businesses attached and on the side, and part of it had already come down. So one of the scariest moments that kept me up until 4, because this happened toward the end when this particular building we were just talking about really went up in flames and started to collapse, was that there was a drunk person, a very intoxicated person. We don't know if they're a homeless person or not, although he does think that is a homeless person because he refers to him that way. But we don't know for sure. I don't think anybody asked him whether he was just a protester that got too intoxicated or what happened. Someone at the end of this video, after they managed to rescue this man from the burning embers and the building falling on top of him, not once but twice said that he had wanted to kill himself in the fire, that he had a death wish and he wanted to commit suicide by just, intoxicating himself to the point of oblivion and laying in front of a burning building that was about to crumble on top of him. That was his way that he wanted to go, I guess. And it was shocking and horrifying because as the blaze and the intensity of this thing happened, you saw a bunch of the protesters running toward the fire, and Andrew started screaming, get back, it's about to blow, it's about to come down. But they didn't stop. And it was horrifying because you couldn't understand what in the heck was going on. Why were these people running toward a building? It looked like they were going to try and go inside of it. And then you see them struggling to get something off of the floor, and you see a group of them running away, carrying a body. And I thought, oh my gosh, somebody has died. Somebody probably stumbled out of that building and died because they inhaled too much smoke. But you couldn't really see that it was a man laying in front of the building, and they had to rescue him because he was about to have this building fall on top of him. And he ended up running back toward the building. They had to go get him again. People were so shocked by this after they rescued him. And right before the building collapsed, he did run toward the building again. And these people fought him. I don't know how they subdued him and got him away from the building, but they did not allow him to commit suicide that night. Take a look.
Leave him. They were trying to help him away, but they're trying to almost fighting him to get out of there, but he won't leave. Just get out of there.
It's gonna blow.
Yeah.
And it was just horrifying. But you know, after we've seen all of the images across the country of all of the riots that are taking place, I hope that there are lessons that can be learned for the rest of America from what's already happened in the Twin Cities. This doesn't have to happen in your town. You don't have to allow it. Your leadership doesn't have to allow it. Something can be done to stop the total destruction of our cities, of our country. And I wanted to share the unique perspective of this incredible young man from Minneapolis whose heart has been broken over the last few days as he has seen what humans can do to other humans. And here he is with us tonight. Oh, you were in a...
Well, before we put Andrew on, I just want to, since his interview is about 34 minutes, I'm going to do our station ID for the people listening on the radio and
How do you know how long it is?
all the country is. You are listening to KPPP LP 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, adding local color to your airways. So now I'll go back to Cindy and she can do this interview.
Yes, here is Andrew. We are so glad to have him. Welcome to the show, Andrew. It's really great having you. Thanks for being here. I know you're really tired.
Thank you for having me.
So, Andrew, one of the things that folks have really been remarking on is your ability to weather the storm, I guess, if you want to call it that, with such calm. And you actually talked a little bit about your military service. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in your training, and how that has helped you deal with the riots?
Yes, so the military in general kind of trains us to remain calm in stressful situations through basic training. My job in the military is an 88 mic, so I'm a truck driver. I've been in the military for almost 8 years. The first part of my military service, I was active duty. I was stationed in Alaska for almost 4 years, a little under 4. We did one deployment to Kuwait. I got out of active duty in 2016, and now I've been in the reserves, and I'm a current sergeant in the Army Reserves in Arden Hills, Minnesota.
And I know that this might sound like a strange question, but I don't want people to think that you are the kind of person that condones violence. I know you spoke a lot about that during your live feed, that you didn't condone any of what was happening. You wanted to remain neutral, but you are not a blue state Democrat, liberal, progressive that I think somebody might have even yelled at you last night, something about you being a Soros paid activist. Can you talk a little bit about your background in politics, I guess?
Yeah, so politically myself, I was born and raised a conservative. I have voted Republican in the last 2 elections. I just felt like more Republicans, at least Republicans, conservatives, anybody on the right side of the spectrum, to get out there yourselves. And I see a lot of my peers that do complain about the mainstream media and that they're not there, or if they are there, they make the situation look worse. In this case, they weren't there, so they weren't able to even frame any type of a situation. But I just grew tired of it because I felt like the same process happens over and over again, no matter how I feel personally. So I just wanted to get out there myself and just show everybody on both sides of the political spectrum what was happening, and not really give my own personal feeling into it, so that way the people watching could give their opinion on it.
I think you did an excellent job. I love your camera work. I'm really sorry about your phone getting damaged. And you also had a flat tire situation. Was that because because of the glass and the debris that's now everywhere in Minneapolis? Is that how your tire got flat?
Actually, it got flat in St. Paul off of 94. There's glass all over 94. I had taken a Snapchat video when I pulled over showing the fire trucks drive past through downtown St. Paul on 94 on the way to Midway. And then I had taken another video. Well, my truck tire was going flat, but I was trying to rush home because I had to get to Fridley before my tire went all the way flat and the rim was, so I managed to get home and put it on a jack stand. But it was the glass and the debris on the interstate that really, I think that's what caused it.
So, folks, if you want to support Andrew Mercado in the work that he's been doing, and I think he's been doing a job unlike anybody that I've watched, and that's saying a lot because I've been watching a lot of live streamers. Venmo him. His Venmo is Andrew-Mercado-25. Help support the work that he's doing. You started doing this on a whim. You've never live streamed before, is what you said. You're not a media person.
No, the only thing that I just started doing was just YouTube streaming video games for fun in my free time. That's what I would do, and all I did was go down there. I was at 38th in Chicago first on Wednesday afternoon, and I was just recording and taking pictures because that protest was very peaceful. And then I heard people were heading to the precinct, and I said, well, I was going to go home after I saw the memorial because that's all I really wanted to see. I just wanted to be there, and then I thought to myself, I should head over there and just see what it looks like. And you guys, the rest is history.
Right, and you can go to Andrew Mercado's Facebook page, and I highly suggest that you do because there are really no words for me to tell you what you would see if you watched the videos, but I highly suggest that you watch them start to finish. They're an education in and of themselves. And that first night, what was the mood? Because there was a shift. You said that the memorial was very peaceful. Then something happened, and there was a huge shift in the energy. What was your take on that?
So the 38th in Chicago, the scene of the crime where it happened, is about a 10-minute drive from the 3rd precinct in South Minneapolis off Lake Street. So I had to get my car and drive to the other side of South Minneapolis and then park in the residential area, which, like I said, I had to park about 10 blocks away from Lake Street in general, just for safety, because every business on Lake Street seems as if it's being looted. But the first night, I'd say it shifted around 10 o'clock on Wednesday night, right about a couple hours before my friend Tyler arrived. That's when it started growing worse, and the riot police were there, and they were on the roof, and I could tell the tensions were rising on Wednesday night, and that was before they started burning the AutoZone and the Wendy's subsequently.
And you grew up in this town. As you walked around, you know your way around the cities very well, and you talked about this is where you got your first job. This is where your dad's business is, and you were kind of checking in on businesses and locations of friends and family that you might want to, advise about whether or not their job would be there tomorrow. What was it like for you, literally watching your city, your memories burn to the ground?
It was difficult to watch. I'm from Oakdale, Minnesota. I was born in Monticello, but I've spent a lot of time. So when I was recording my dad's business, that's in the Midway. That's when I was in the Midway area on University Avenue, and all the businesses on University Avenue were being looted and burned. And I just wanted to make sure that if my dad were to show up to work this morning, that his business was still there, because on Thursday morning around 4 a.m, the workers for the affordable living building showed up to work, and the building had burned down. They didn't know. No, none of them knew. They were literally showing up to work, and the building was gone. And you see it all the time in movies or like TV shows. You see, or like even on the news, you'll see buildings burning down and like rubble. But it's different when you're like there in person and you can see it yourself.
You said that this last night after having spent the entire day before that, almost 12 hours live streaming, that watching a building start on fire gave you a certain kind of feeling. I don't know if it's despair or sadness, but you knew what was going to happen to those buildings, and it made you feel how?
I was just in shock and disbelief. How quickly like, human beings can cause that type of damage. It would be one thing to see it if maybe like a bulldozer was knocking buildings down or a machine, but it was humans that were taking these buildings down and these landmarks on Lake Street. But like I said constantly in my live stream, that all I'm doing there is just to hold the phone so that the rest of the world can see what is happening. But it is difficult for me as a person watching it through my phone, while at the same time behind the phone it's actually happening. It's difficult, and I find myself narrating what's going on to kind of deflect from my own personal feelings, so it doesn't kind of take over myself.
I mean, please don't lose that. I know that it was very traumatizing, but I've never seen a newbie doing live streams or reporting that was able to narrate with such clarity and such great detail everything that was happening. And again, the camera work, how steady you were, your slow pans, your zooms in and out, really, really excellent work. And by the way, you had to do first aid on both nights. I didn't get to see what happened the first night, but you attended to a shooting victim. Can you tell us about what happened there?
So the first night, I want to say either late Wednesday night or like 1 a.m. on Thursday. It all kind of blends together. It's all one night for me.
Yeah.
But the first victim, he was behind the pawn shop, and I don't know. I don't want to say this is a fact or not, but there is a story that the pawn shop owner had shot somebody. I don't know if it is the person that I helped specifically, but he had a wound on his left thigh, and all I did was just help that individual get safely inside the vehicle because there were people carrying him. Last night, there was an individual who had just slipped on some glass. Like there's so like it's not even safe to go down there just walking the streets. I almost slipped several times on glass in the streets and the debris that's there. But a gentleman had slipped and cracked the back of his head, and I was going to put because I have a little portable self-aid kit that the military gives us, and it's filled, so I brought it with me. And I was trying to get my gauze pack open, but before I even opened the gauze pack, there were 2 nurses attending him. So I just put my stuff down and then just asked how I could help. So I just held a gauze up against the back of his head for like a couple of seconds, but it was really the nurses that took care of him on that one.
And I really want to thank you for your service, because I can see how that training has served you well and has served your entire community through the work that you've been doing there in your Twin Cities. And one of the things that was really remarkable to me, and like I said prior to this call, I'd really like to talk to you more in depth about this. I've been reporting on mercenary activism since Standing Rock here in North Dakota. We had the whole Standing Rock protest, which lasted for over a year. And there were a lot of similar types of things that I saw, including the fact that there was a group of what appeared to be trained street medics, as they called themselves, that were strategically positioned throughout the protests. And they just popped out of nowhere. And they also had an entire tent or tarp or something of medical supplies and water and milk and things like that you came upon in a parking lot. Could you talk a little bit about the presence of those types of persons, like the helpers or first aid people? Were you aware of them the night before? And then last night, what did you think when you saw this giant tent of supplies just sitting there?
Yeah, so I believe everybody down there that's either documenting like myself or helping nurses. It's all volunteer work. We're all within the crowds. We're all right there with them. It's not like we're trying to keep a distance at times the best we can, but we're right. The first response, the nurses, people documenting, we're all right there with them. That's the only way we can. We don't have a camera crew or an available first aid station, like a good one, to be able to work. But what was in the Target, so the Target parking lot off of Lake Street, that's the one that was getting looted, and it was on national TV, I believe, so on Thursday, showing that it was getting looted. But in the parking lot, the volunteers had built makeshift tents that they had taken from the Target, all the milk from Cub and the water from Cub, because Cub had gotten looted. They tried to grab as much of the most essential supplies that had been looted and kind of put them in one centralized location, so that way protesters or anybody, if they did need water or medical supplies like masks, because again we are going through the pandemic, the gloves, PPE for that reason, on top of PPE for a riot, so like ibuprofen, bandages, any little thing that you can use to take care of a situation like that, they had centralized in the Target parking lot.
And there was also a very strange scene where a whole cart, one of those big, warehouse carts of bricks, was pulled out and kind of passed out for people to break windows with. What was that? Where did that come from?
So I don't know where it came from exactly, but I was trying to ask myself, what are they using to smash the windows? And it was melee weapons, golf clubs, poles. But last night, as you guys had seen on the live stream, they were pushing a cart down Lake Street with had bricks on it, full of bricks, and then people would just run to the cart, throw it, run to the cart, throw it. That's all they had to do.
Now, among the many, many horrific and traumatic things that you saw last night, one of the most shocking things, I don't even know, there's so many of them, the fire trucks coming in and almost running through the crowd, and that was shocking. But when that building was on fire, there was almost a death. And they rescued the man, but then he tried to run back in. Please describe what you saw there and what ended up happening.
But that was probably the most raw display of humanity I've seen. Just with the circumstances of what is happening, it was, you got the chaos all around you, but there was many, many times of you can see humanity and taking care of each other at the same time. But there was a homeless man that was either intoxicated or just sleeping next to the 27th Avenue sign that was right next to the building that was on fire. And people had noticed the man passed out, and they tried to, the first time they helped him, they carried him over, and he said, "No, I want to die." And he walked over back and laid back down right within, I'd say, 10 feet of the burning building. He's right there. And finally the people had forcefully removed him in a large group to get him out of there. And I'd say at least a minute or two later, the building came down.
There was also a lot of drugs present. You mentioned that this man was drunk, but you also, when you were walking around, I was really thankful that you were describing not only what we were seeing and giving us detail with your narration, but you were describing the smells in the air, the toxicness of the smoke, the burning rubber, the chemicals, and the heat, the temperature of the heat, and how it was making you feel. And then you also talked about the fact that there was a smell of marijuana almost as a constant everywhere you were. How aware were you of drug use out there? And can you also talk about the pile of needles that you came upon?
Yes. So the pile of needles was right outside of the Target, and they looted everything possible inside of that Target, including the Target dog, the mascot. They had looted that too. But I don't. The needles were just they looked like brand new needles that had just been dumped out of the box right
Okay.
there. You guys saw across from the Target in the parking lot in the rocks. But yeah, I'm not specifically seeing a lot of drug use per se. The marijuana smoke is, of course, everywhere. I mean, I'm not individually seeing people use.
But there was a
But
lot of people that were obviously intoxicated or on
that's
something.
the one. That's all the liquor stores. All the liquor stores were raided, so they were handing out bottles of alcohol to anybody that wanted one. That had looted it.
And they did loot several different drugstores as well.
That is correct. They attempted to loot the drugstores, which what I've noticed is a majority of the tobacco store owners are the ones that have AR-15s and are protecting their business themselves.
You noticed that 2 nights in a row, people were out trying to protect their businesses with long weapons, and I don't know how successful they were. First of all, how did you feel about that? What was the tone for everyone else that was protesting or rioting? Were there any confrontations that you witnessed?
There was one confrontation last night with the tobacco store owner next to the Arby's. Or I don't, if it wasn't the owner, it was a worker of the tobacco store. They had their business all boarded up in a van out front and a group of people. Hold on. I apologize for that. I had a phone call.
That's okay.
And they had gotten into a confrontation, but the protesters had left. But the sentiment around the business owners carrying is that the rioters are not getting close to that because they see the AR-15 or a 12-gauge shotgun. They're not going to really get close, especially if they see how scared or how nervous the store owner may be. As I had seen, you don't really want to be around it during that time. But I personally support them being able to protect their own businesses 100%.
I don't know that you got a chance to listen to the press conference this morning, but there was a National Guard. I don't know if he's the director or I don't know what the hierarchy was. I didn't get to see it, but one of my media colleagues told me that it was shocking that he said they were not given a mission and there was no plan for them to intervene until this morning. You mentioned several times as you walked around in the last 2 days, there was zero police presence last night. Zero National Guard until very late. They did make an appearance. Can you talk about the presence of police on both days? Also, news people, helicopters, and drones.
So the police presence was in full effect on Wednesday night. They had the riot police surrounding the 3rd precinct in the front and the rear. They had pushed the protesters back all the way down Lake Street to the pawn shop and the U.S. Bank, and that's where I think I had ended my stream before I had came back on early Thursday morning. But there, in terms of last night, though, there's absolutely zero police presence, zero National Guard presence in that section of South Minneapolis until around 4 a.m. It was complete. I guess there was no laws, there was no rules where I was standing at. It was the people were shouting "cop-free zone." That's the best way I can describe it. It was free for all. There were some drones that we had seen in the air, either little small ones that people were just using to be able to record safely. And kind of get that aerial view, but we had seen some drones that were a little bigger and had some that looked like they had police lights on it, red and blue lights. And some of the protesters had big strong laser pointers, and they pointed at the drones in the sky, and you'd see the drone move away from the laser because it was in the camera of the drone, and then it would fly away. But yes, like I said, I spoke with one of the National Guard soldiers, and it appeared they had no idea what was going on. But then once I waited until they at least got set up, so that way they could probably have a mission from his sergeant to where to stand and what to do. And then I walked up to him and asked him what their mission was, and he said right now They were just providing security to the firemen. And I had heard that earlier in the night too, that the guard was just following the fire department around. They weren't actively participating in riot control. They weren't pointing weapons at the rioters or even the buildings that were burning and the people standing I was right next to the truck and they weren't pointing weapons. They were, like I said, they were just there to protect the fire department.
How do you feel upon learning that there was no mission planned for them to protect the city, to protect the businesses, to protect the people? And if you could ask Governor Walz a question, what would you say? I mean, you've grown up there, you watched your city for the past 2 days now, and into the foreseeable future, as far as we can tell, destroyed. How do you feel about the leadership on this?
The only question I would ask, the question I ask is, and it's not like a gotcha question or anything like that to ask him. Why did it take so long, or why did they let it burn down all night? But at the same time, they were in multiple locations in multiple cities, putting fires out, and it was spread all across Lake Street. But I would ask him what the response time, what was up with that, for the fire department to get there, because like I said, they didn't show up to around the 3rd precinct area on Lake Street until about 4 a.m.
Now, and this is just the last few questions, just 3 more, and I'll let you go. I'm so thankful that you are doing this. Again, Venmo, Mr. Mercado. If you could put your little white sheet down, I want people to be able to see the lettering at the bottom of the screen. Venmo at Andrew-Mercado-25. If you want to help him replace his broken phone that somebody smacked out of his hand last night, maybe even get him a gimbal or some kind of a stabilizer or equipment that he can carry his phone in. He needs how many new tires? Just one, or
just one. I'm gonna have to replace.
You're gonna have to replace a tire. You're on a bad knee. You've been carrying your own supplies and going almost a whole day without eating. I'm really.
I would just like to say this too, and I appreciate the support for myself, but I feel it pales in comparison to what George Floyd had to go through on that ground. And like I said, that's the entire reason I personally put myself out there, because even though I'm hurting and in pain, and it's not really a fun time for me, George Floyd is no longer on this earth. And I am. So I'm going to try to at least show the entire world what is happening downtown Minneapolis. And I am going to get out there today and live stream some of the peaceful protests that are planned, and maybe even get down there to 38th in Chicago. And I had live streamed before I had went viral and blew up, and I don't think it had many views, but I want to get down there and make sure that it gets more views, so people can see the memorial and the location that it had occurred.
Yes, and I thank you for saying that. I want to reiterate, that the injustice of the murder of George Floyd it's heartbreaking, and it's shaken up the entire city. It's shaken up the entire system. As you said many times during your live stream, you've been neutral on what you feel about the reaction of the people. You're just there to document it, and we thank you for that. I'm very thankful for your training and your service as well, because I think that it is serving everyone very well right now. What do you think is going to happen today? You said there are more protests planned. They're supposed to be peaceful. It's a Friday, and we're going into the weekend. You've unfortunately had the knack for predicting what is going to happen and where it's going to happen next. What's going to happen in Minneapolis, do you think?
Well, that's the thing about this is I'm not going to speculate until I am physically there. So that's what I feel like the problem in media is you have people giving it, or the mainstream media, I should say rather, that they'll speculate and give an opinion on the speculation and then give that to the people. Whereas I want to be there, show everybody what is happening, and then I will then I can, when I'm physically there, I can see the situation and then give my predictions of what I think is going to happen, so I can get set up and to safety. But I can't speculate until I'm physically there and get a feel for the crowd.
Well, thank you for saying that. I really admire you for having that stance. You were asked on video several times to speculate about different things that you were not a witness to. And you always responded the same way. I can't speculate on that because I wasn't there. So I respect that integrity. Tell me, um, what do you think is going to happen to all of those buildings and businesses that were destroyed? Do they come back? Can they be rebuilt? What's in the future, do you think, for the business community?
That was the question right now in terms of, and for the business community, is on Lake Street. Those are some historic buildings that have been there many decades. They're going to have to either at minimum get bulldozed because there's nothing but rubble, and it looks like the buildings were bombed. It honestly looked like I was watching a documentary from World War II in Europe, seeing the rubble and the buildings, how they had collapsed. They're I don't know what their plan is with that, but the buildings definitely. Some of the buildings, majority of the buildings that had been burned, I personally don't believe they will be able to be refurbished in their current state. So at minimum, I believe they'll have to be knocked down.
How do you feel about Minneapolis right now? I know that there has been a swift retreat from the city. A lot of people are leaving the Minneapolis area, some of them saying they'll never return. How do you feel about the city now, and having witnessed firsthand what human beings can do to each other? Do you feel like you are going to continue to support and be there for your city, or do you have that same feeling of wanting to flee?
No, I don't have the feeling of wanting to flee. And I feel like after events like this, people's reactions and emotions on situations are at a top. And a thing a lot of people say frequently in situations like this, whether it be the country as a whole, the state, and the first thing they're going to say is that they're going to leave. It'll take people like us that were there, or people that are reporting it like you guys, to try to get the message out. The first responders, the community, to rebuild South Minneapolis. But I think we can do it.
That's very hopeful. I'm hoping that you're right. And I wanted to ask you about your health. I know that there wasn't, I didn't see everyone wearing masks. In fact, I saw a lot of people wearing masks inappropriately, or not at all, on the chin, off the ear. I was worried about your safety and your health, and frankly, the health of everybody there, because there was no social distancing. There was no protocols for protecting people from the pandemic. How did you feel about that, and are you going to get tested?
Yeah, I'm gonna test. I'm gonna get tested after this is all done. I don't want to get tested and then go back out there, and then I might get it again. I want to probably get tested Monday. But honestly, to be frank, I had completely forgotten that there was a pandemic going on.
Wow.
I had completely forgot about the coronavirus. That wasn't a thought in my mind. The first night it was, because I had made sure I had my mask. I had a mask with me last night, but I had worn my mask the whole first night, and I had a almost kind of like a red ring around my mouth from the tear gas, because you're breathing your air into the mask, and I do have a filter, but a lot of it's like the sweat and the heat is building up behind the mask, and it was caking on my face, and the tear gas was getting in there. I couldn't physically wear it, so when I would walk through smoke, I would take my shirt or my arm and cover my face that way. But like I said, I had completely forgotten that we were even in a pandemic last night and the night before.
Wow. And I'm sure that if you could forget, there was a lot of other people that probably weren't thinking about it as well. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever, and I would really, really like to have you back on again, Andrew, but I know that you have a lot to do, and you're a very busy man. I wouldn't be surprised if some media outlet snapped you up because you're an excellent reporter, very calm under pressure, and just an excellent storyteller. Thank you so much for everything that you are doing. Thank you for your service, and Godspeed, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me and letting me talk. I've been making sure that I've been at least speaking to Minnesota media before going out into the rest, because I don't want to, like I said, my whole point was just to cover this for my friends and family that live in Minnesota or that live around the community and show them the picture. But it blew up to a national thing, and I was not expecting that to happen.
Well, you're handling it very well, Andrew, and I just really appreciate your reporting. Everybody go to Andrew Mercado. Check out the live streams that he has done in the past few days, as well as those he will be reporting on going forward. Thanks, everyone, for having us here. I really like that young man. He was so humble and just... I really like his neutrality, his objectivity, and the way that he handled himself. Tonight, we will find out, as Andrew Mercado said earlier in another interview he had, whether or not tonight there will be any more rioting. As of today, there is a curfew in the Twin Cities. You cannot go out after 8 p.m. So that curfew is currently in effect and has been for the last half hour. If you get caught outside, you could get up to $1,000 fine.
Wow.
Now, with everything going on across this country, I know that it's very emotional and confusing, but there is more to these protests, these riots, whatever you want to call them, than meets the eye. And unbeknownst to many people, there are forces behind a lot of the damage, a lot of the pain and suffering being caused through these riots, of people that are taking advantage of the real, very real, and justifiable anger that people of color in this country have felt and have suffered as they watched time and time again as brown and black bodies have been abused by rogue cops that violate people's rights and use excessive force. But the hijacking of people's pain, of people's anguish, and the superimposition of foreign agendas is definitely worth examining. And we will keep peeling back the layers of that onion here on A Mexican Crossing Lines. In my next show coming up, I will be focusing on the Antifa-led groups and organizations, rallies and campaigns across this company that are being planned and funded, as well as being supported through bail funds and legal defense funds for protesters and rioters. And I'd like to know how you feel about that. Plus, I want you to look very carefully for all of the hashtags We Grieve Together and the Defund the Police and the new Abolish Police hashtags that are circulating, because they are part of these Antifa-led groups, activists, and organizations that are funding and fueling many of these protests across the country, including here in Minnesota, the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the National Lawyers Guild Jail Support Group, and most recently, as of about a half an hour, Ilhan Omar's fundraiser for the work, I guess, as she calls it, of this movement, tweeting out that organizations in Minnesota were putting their lives on the line for justice, and that it was time that members of Congress show up for them, in which she tagged Ayanna Pressley, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and herself, and asked people to donate to the SecureActBlue.com link, in which they'd already raised $50,000, saying, quote, "There's power in this movement. Thanks to my sisters in service and all of you who've raised money, raised more than double their initial goal of $50,000 in Minneapolis." And she asks for people to double it again. I'll be talking about that on my next show. Thanks for being with us here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. God bless and good night.